learned was how to create and map a, an instrument from a 2D panel and then map it. And we're talking about the animated textures, whether it's a G1000 or can you see my screen?
It says Jeffrey has minimized their window. Sit tight.
Hold on here. That shouldn't have happened. This screen.
There it is.
Is that better? All right. So we're talking about animated screens, whether it's a G1000 or a radio or anything that, like generic instruments.
Yes, like pictures of pictures of things, though, right? Like, so for instance, frequencies, I think is what you.
Correct. That's correct. So anything that would be, a changing display in a 2D panel. If you want it to be animated in a 3D cockpit, essentially you need to create it in a 2D panel. Not that you need to display the 2D panel, but you need to create it there so that you have an instrument somewhere that can then be mapped to a 3D object that that you can put wherever you want, essentially. And that process was a little bit painful to learn,
Yes.
but I figured it out. So the simple, just kind of quick and dirty, easy thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a simple 3D object. We'll do an add mesh. I'm just going to make a plane, and I'm going to rotate that on the X. I think that's what I want. Yep. And I'm going to scale it down. And I'm just going to move it where we'll be able to see it in a 3D cockpit kind of environment. So that should work. Now I could go down a little bit. Whoa, wrong.
Not that.
What?
No, still not that.
So something like that would be fine. All right, so I've got an object here, right? So let's say I want to do a radio stack onto that object, right? And that, again, that could be a face. And again, be a face of an other instrument. But you really only want to have the faces that are going to be changing, not necessarily the entire like radio object, but just like the face of the display.
Okay, so when you're done with this, I'll show you what I've kind of run into on the Staggerwing, and we'll kind of see if
Okay.
this applies, because I think you're going in that direction. But go ahead.
And then this will be in the same object that you have all the manipulators. That's the other kind of requirement.
Okay.
So
it's still making
so
sense.
So what I've done is, let's go to Plane Maker, and we'll go to the 2D panel. And I had deleted these, but I mean, I'm sure you're capable of throwing in these radio stacks, right?
Well,
And
I haven't done it yet, but I watched Dan's tutorial on it. It looks like you just pick something from the left, drag it in there.
Yeah. So I went over here to not nav displays, radios, and nav com. Well, let's put the transponder in first. So again, this is a GA transponder. It's about the simplest transponder you can get. And each of these dials come pre-programmed with a rotary here that lets you go to off to standby to mode C, a pushable ident button, and then these will be rotator knobs, but of course they won't be in 3D, right?
Okay.
And then I think it might be, well, this one is a COM1 nav one. I don't really, for this aircraft, I do not want to have VOR in it. But, sorry, COM1. Hello, where'd you go? COM1 GA. I'm just going to line this up there. And then I got a COM2 GA. I could just drop this down because it looks like a little bit of an overlap. I don't want to necessarily show the plywood right here. And then I think I had something else on the top. But what the heck else would I have wanted? Doesn't really matter. But say transponder and 2 comms, right? Sort of like the minimum thing you would need in.
Yep. Yep.
So I've got this saved, right? And I can save it in X-Plane.
Or
And
PlaneMaker.
PlaneMaker. I saved it in PlaneMaker. And as you know, in PlaneMaker 2D panels, it's this background is its own image, right? So, sorry, wrong button. So I basically have this panel dashboard that I imported in, right? And quite honestly, that would be all I need if I knew exactly where that instrument was going to be. So I could have actually, if I wanted to make like a background for those radios, I could have done that in advance and then mapped it in here to get them to line up, right? But because I don't have that, I'm going to have to take a screenshot just so I can know where these things are going to map out. Because really what's going to happen is what X-Plane does is wherever this image would appear on the 2D panel, you're gonna and I'm gonna show you how to do it in Blender. You define the area that you want to take out of what X-Plane otherwise would have put on the 2D panel to force it to display on your 3D object. That's really what's happening. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. So we got to figure out where that is going to map to it, and there is no pretty way to do that. There's no good automated way to do that. So, and I did pick this trick up from Dan's videos, and supposedly there is a way in X-Plane to force this. There is actually a documentation on the developer blog in X-Plane that says if you hold down Shift Control Alt Space while you're in X-Plane, it will create this snapshot for you. Except I haven't been able to make it work. And looking on all the forums, apparently no one else has been able to make it work. So I don't, you could try it and see if it works for you. But
okay.
It's supposed to put it in the cockpit panels folder automatically if you do Shift Control Alt Space, but it didn't work for me. So I've created this, right? And I've gone back to my Photoshop or GIMP. I'm going to paste this guy in. And hopefully it came in, right? Why is nothing cooperating right now?
You're in GIMP land.
I know. That's really weird.
So you can't move it? It's not wanting to move?
Yeah, I didn't want to move. Let's try again. Why would it not let me move it? Isn't that weird?
I don't know.
It's worked perfectly before.
Okay, copy.
Paste. That's definitely the layer, but it has not let me.
You switch to another. What's that?
I faked it by scaling it. I don't know why it lets me move it when I'm trying to scale, but not when I'm just don't want to move it. So I'm basically just lining these two images up, right? To get it pretty close within a couple pixels. So if I kind of flick back and forth, I'm pretty close. It's not letting me move that thing. That is so weird. Okay. So I've got this, for the demonstration purpose, I've got this now pretty much where these instruments appear on this panel. You can see it, right?
Yep. Yep.
So I'm going to save this or export it out to my aircraft folder into the cockpit panels folder.
And all of
Right.
this
If you
has
ever
to be named exactly right.
exactly correct.
Okay. So
So you
so
can get it.
cockpit and then panels.
Yeah, and let's see. If I go to, that's not helping me. Son of a gun. File. Hopefully this will not be broken. Okay. The um, I don't have a quick way. I can show you in a different folder how to double check all of that naming structure. Because there is I think it's one of the default folders. But anyway, cockpit panels. I'm going to create a panel preview. All right, replacing that. Except yeah, I'm going to do that. Sorry. Export it, replace it. This does not have to be a high quality ping in any way at all because it's actually not what gets used. In fact, it doesn't show anything in this image at all. So, because what it's actually showing is the automatic generated ones, and I'll talk about how to fix those as well.
Okay.
In fact, while I'm in this 2D cockpit, we can just double check this one is like radcom 1_GA.
So you need that name.
You'll need that name if you don't like this image, right? Like if you want to do some major tweaking, and in fact, you can completely really remake the way everything looks on here. Like if I wanted to make this bigger and bigger letters or numbers, I can do all that in GIMP and make it, higher quality textures. Like you can see these are pretty low res. You can replace all those images, and you'll want to do that in combination with what I'm showing you now. And in fact, you probably want to tweak those images first to make it look good on the 2D panel, like I did with these instruments here, like the Spinnenzig. I basically brought in a generic instrument, and it may even take generic instruments, but you can do these as well. And then you would make a high res instrument first that had animated displays before you did the process we're doing right now, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So back to Blender. And we are going to open up that image file that we just created. And that is cockpit panels, panel preview. So that's my panel preview.
Okay, so you're in the what window is that?
This is the UV map window.
Okay.
The UV image editor. I
Gotcha.
brought it in.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So then I can go back over to this, right? And just like I would UV map anything, I can UV map this. Can unwrap it, get this square, scale it down. And then obviously I'm going to line it up with this radio as best I can.
So you're picking the portions. You're picking
Yeah, whatever. Oops. Yeah, I'm putting this where what I want to display. So if I didn't want to even see these whites, I could actually pop it in here and I wouldn't see those white frames. But whatever I'm showing here is going to pop up into this square when I'm all said and done.
Okay.
In fact, I could probably, just so things don't get too dislodged here, I can, kind of change the aspect ratio
Yeah.
and make it kind of look a little more appropriate.
Apply the scale.
Yes. Yeah, because well,
Because
if I'm in edit mode, you don't have to, as it turns out.
oh, okay.
I did not know that before. If you make changes in edit mode, it's it's kind of automatically applied.
So if you
But I
unwrap
think
that,
that
do you just unwrap that again, and then it takes the UV map takes on those new proportions?
no, because I mean it's not smart enough to, but I can. It doesn't really matter what the UV map is anyway, because again, the proportions of the UV map over here don't have to be the proportions over here. It just scales it accordingly. So we can stretch it. Like I can make a UV map here that's look like that,
Yeah. No, I get
and it'll
that.
stretch it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
right.
Okay.
So I'm just kind of making this the same size as this roughly.
Roughly.
Um,
Okay. Yep. Got it.
if I smart UV mapped, it would probably come in the same ratio, but I mean, why not try it? Yeah, so it's better. It came in the right ratio. That'll let me know if we're close, right? So that lets me know I should make this a little bit wider, I suppose.
Well, I get it. It's enough for the
Right,
demo thing. Um,
right.
it'll
So
be
that's good enough
it'll
there.
be slightly distorted, but it's fine for the
I
demo.
think we're close enough, right?
Okay.
So we've got this now. So here is where it all gets really, and the steps that are most important. So we've got this plane.
And at this point, there's
Uh,
nothing special about this plane that you created. I mean, you just said add a plane and sized it and positioned it somewhere.
that's it. That's all I did, right?
Yep.
So the materials are what matter here. Um, you need to make a new material, and you can call it panel, all right? But what you need to do,
Now
and
that's with a capital P now.
it doesn't matter. This is just I could call this material X if I wanted to. In
Okay.
fact, just so uh,
Okay, so the name doesn't matter here at this point. It could be
yeah, so like panel 01, right? I'll just call it new or not panel. It doesn't matter what it's called.
sure. Okay.
The thing to do down here is to go down to the X plane settings, and you need to tell the panel that it's part of a cockpit panel, this checkbox right here.
Okay.
And then you need to apply it to that material. So that object material needs to be non-panel. So now basically we've told Blender that this plane
Has the material not panel.
has that material, not panel, but most importantly, that not panel material is um, set in X plane, so it's showing as a part of cockpit panel. Fair enough.
Yep. Fair enough.
Um, and that was the hard part to find online, but I eventually found it. And while I am here, I need to kind of check the normals. How do I do that in
Right there. Right
279?
there. Yep, you're right there. Those little
Oh, there it
boxes.
is.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay, we're good. So, and then for this radio, which I've put, maybe I haven't. I'm going to move that to this layer, call it layer 20, and we'll go to scenes, down to layer 20, and it doesn't really matter what you name it, but you want to make sure that this layer group is set to where was that cockpit object? Oh, the type is cockpit right here. So not an aircraft part. This needs to be a cockpit type. And then quite honestly, this panel doesn't need to be set at all. It does not need a texture.
Because it's gonna look for that default name in your hyphen panels hyphen folder.
Yeah,
Right.
it's internal magic that is not anything we need to control, nor can we.
Okay.
So at that point, I can, in fact, I will just call this just because it's easier. I'm just going to call it far. If you name it your aircraft
Aircraft name.
first,
Yep. And
aircraft name, then
underscore.
cockpit, apparently it'll auto load it, but I'm going to load it anyway. So in fact, I'm just because I think I already created one, I'm going to call this DR2. We can test it as we go. So that we're good there. I'm going to save this. I'm going to export it.
You added something to the name there.
Yeah, I just wanted to make it something different
Oh, okay. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Yep.
to just prove. I think I'm proving a point to myself while we do this.
Okay. Fair enough.
All right. So,
So just before you move on here, that layer 20 in Blender was the same layer that had your manipulators on it.
well, yeah. I mean, I don't have any manipulators in that aircraft, but you want that in the same layer. You want it exporting. You want one cockpit object because that was documented. I found the document, and they, as of 11.3 or 11.4, I think 11.3, it had to be one cockpit object. But you don't have to really. You don't. It can be named anything you want. But all the manipulators and all of your um, animated instrument mapping needs to be in that object, if that makes sense.
I think so.
So objects, and I think I call that Fokker DR1S something or other. How come I don't see that object?
Did it export?
Sure acted like it did.
Turn on your dates to see if anything in there is got a date on there. Details.
It didn't export. And I didn't get an error either.
Okay.
All right, let's make sure. I think somehow it got turned off. Huh. It got turned off before I exported it. So it never exported. There it is.
Yep.
All right, so now over to the X-Plane folder. And I can drop this into here. It can actually, it'll find it. It doesn't have to be in the objects folder. And in fact, I think they prefer it if the cockpit object is outside of the objects folder. And then actually talk till you.
I've seen this a couple of different ways depending on the aircraft developer.
And it could be, well, let's just try it because it used to be like 11, 8, 9, and 10. It had to be this way. So let's just check. We'll experiment because I know it works the other way, but why not try again? Standard.
That thing's looking good, Jeffrey.
It does look good.
You're doing well.
I'm playing with Manfred today. I'm giving him a wool collar.
You need to make Snoopy. You know that, right?
I know. Except apparently I've heard a lot of things online. The moment anybody posts anything with Snoopy on the sim, you get a letter from their lawyers.
Yeah, I'm sure.
because I really want to do a Piper Cub with a Snoopy on the side, but yes.
That would be cool.
So I'm going to go to objects. I'm going to do, and if this doesn't work, we'll drop back to Papa. And then, of course, this one has to be interior cockpit, right?
Okay, so you're back in PlaneMaker and you've
Yeah,
added that new object, the miscellaneous object, and this is the Blender, what Blender just created. Okay.
that's correct. Which was the only thing it had was that rectangle.
Yes.
Whether
Yes. Okay.
this thing, oh yeah, I can't. It won't cooperate regardless. I don't even know if it'll show up in here because it's a in cockpit object. But I'm going to save this, and we are going to go to X-Plane, which sadly I didn't think to open beforehand.
It's okay. It's all right.
Luckily, this aircraft is not doesn't have a ton of polygons.
Go to
There's no.
you go to some far out. I've been testing all my stuff at Bimini because it loads super quick because you're out in the middle of the ocean.
Really?
Yeah. You find
That's
some
a good
place.
idea.
You find some place that's mostly water,
Yeah.
and then it loads. It loads quick. That might not even be the best. You probably go to Midway or something and have even less.
That'd be fun. Yeah. I should start doing that. So, let's see how this goes.
1150.
Oh yeah.
How's it been working for you?
It's been working great, except the only consistent bug I know of is I cannot regenerate aircraft icons to show the new liveries. It crashes every single time.
Okay.
But other than that, it's been working great with Vulkan and X-Pilot. All that's been stable for the most part. It did crash to desktop during a flight yesterday at some point, but it's 99% or 95% stable, and the frame rate improvement's amazing.
That's good. Good feedback.
And then they just released 6, I heard, for if you're not on Steam, you can get beta 6. I don't know if you saw the article or the blog that X-Plane wrote about beta 5. It's actually a funny read, like something I would have written.
I did like this was a disaster.
Yeah, we recalled beta 5 because we were stupid. It was great.
Which is one of the things that I really like about X-Plane is that
This aircraft at night is no good, by the way.
that's the next thing is lighting groups.
Has no lights. Aircraft never had lights. So there's our object properly mapped. We can change it.
Cool.
With digits. Okay.
Yeah, we can turn this guy on, turn on the transponder, animate all these digits. Yep, fully functional. Ident if we want to. So,
Okay.
yeah. And if I go to the 2D panel, you can see the same instruments down here.
It's still there, yeah. But the 2D panel's mostly useless at this point, right?
Well, yeah, except I don't have any of these other instruments there, but yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, for the time being, at least.
So, as you can imagine, if you edited this and put it in your own 3D object, you can place this sucker anywhere. It wouldn't have mattered if this is tilted up, rotated, stuck in a corner. It doesn't matter.
So let me show you. Can I show you what the stagger wing is doing? Can I?
Yeah, let me just
Or is there
show
anything
you
else?
one.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to show you one other couple things. So, like cockpit radios, Navcom. So what I would do is go to I need to figure out, is it resources, bitmaps? Resources, bitmaps is where you would start. Then you go to cockpit, and then you would go to nav radios, and then navcom. And that's where all of this graphic resources are that are used to generate those. So if you remember, one of the ones that, let's see, is com2ga, right? So I would grab these two, copy them over here, and then I can go to my graphics program like GIMP. And I did test this today. You know, you can take the time and figure out and change all of the graphics. Although the buttons, you got to keep that rotary where it's going to, you know, you can't change the rotary, but I can map it somewhere else if I wanted to.
So let me give you, when I show you the stagger wing, this might give you some ideas on how to do this.
All right.
Okay. So I need to share my screen.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. Let me put. I'm gonna throw Discord back over here to the side. Over here, and I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. Can you guys see my desktop now?
Yeah, I can see your desktop.
I can see it good.
So if we fire up Blender, and I'm going to open up my stagger wing. So this is the cockpit OBJ file. Is what I got to working on here. So this guy right here.
All right.
So it's in my aircraft stagger wing. This is like the backup copy that I made. Okay, and that sits in the root directory of that folder.
Right.
Now, I showed you guys the manipulators the first time through, and that looked like this. And it was essentially all of the controls for the 3D objects like this, right? So like the little dial that you manipulate, you know, that you turn this knob with, and so on and so forth. For the throttles, the clock, I don't know what else the switches. These are all the switches down here. If you look down here, those are all the, like, you know, pitot heat, lights, all that stuff. Now, look what they did here. This is right here. That's the comm radio. And all they did on the manipulator object. So if you see that, like, right, like those are just, I mean, imagine a radio here and a radio here. I think there's a comm and a nav, right? So so the toggle flip-flop frequencies and the toggle flip-flop frequencies for nav 1. So comm over here, nav over here.
Right.
And then these are manipulators then, you know, like this square would be the manipulator button to toggle the frequency. This would be the manipulator to turn the thing on. So all of these are modeled in 3D, but look how well, and when in fact, let me launch X-Plane here real quick.
And I probably should have, like if, you know, in a 3D model, all I would really have wanted to do was map to the changing numbers display if I had manipulators, right?
So this is the only thing
that
I think gets that panel, that the textures from the panel is just the digits.
Correct.
And
that's what you would want to do.
This is the fuel flow gauge. Let me turn on textures here. You know, so that's a digital readout.
Right.
And
so that's exactly what they did, was just pick the changing display and then modeled a different face for it.
Okay. Because here, let's see.
Because quite honestly, the rest of that, like the faces, are they also in that cockpit object?
The faces for
all the rest of the instruments.
So
Or instrument, yeah, like the
so
like
this
that instrument, right?
okay. So whoops, what did I do?
Like that instrument isn't in the cockpit object, is it?
No,
Okay,
no,
that's
that's the cockpit object is this. It's just the
yes,
manipulators.
and
It's just the
displays,
and the digits like
right?
for the frequencies or any kind of like an LCD panel something. So like
Yep.
like this is what you see here is part of objects, and then I think it's gauges. Let's see here. So let me sort this the right way. Yeah, the gauge. So
Mm-hmm.
this gauges OBJ is this layer that you're seeing here.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense, and that's really from what I've read. That is, anything that would be any gauge with a needle, you would animate that as a 3D object based on data refs and would not use the cockpit object to do anything with it.
Yeah, so the needles get animated
Right.
based on, and they get animated just like what we were doing with the landing gear, right? So
Correct.
same kind of process. Stick an empty on it, or stick a bone on it, or whatever.
You don't even need to.
Parent it, and then let it go, I
Yeah.
guess.
Well, you wouldn't need to. By the way, like my wheels are not parented to anything. You can animate an object individually on its own as long
Okay.
as it's not attached to something else.
Okay. Gotcha.
But yes,
Yeah. So here's my stagger wing, right? Let me start it up, and
it is a cool looking cockpit.
all of the gauges work. Um, did this? Let's see. I might have loaded up the wrong one. Well, it's neither here nor there. But here's the dilemma. See, oh, I did load up the wrong one. Because see how these are on. These are turned on here. I see something
Yeah.
in that, and over here, right? There's my frequencies.
Yeah.
But that's not. I don't think that this is. Did I do this?
I don't know. I wasn't there.
I was. I don't remember. I don't remember. Oh, carb heat. No, this is not the right one because it's got the wrong manipulators in it. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, it's this one, I think. Yeah. Okay. So this is the one that I made. This is the one from Alabama. So let me start this again and load up that aircraft, and you'll see that it has my manipulators in it, but I kind of got stuck. Like I got this far with making all these switches and all of this stuff, and then I'm like, now what do I do? And I realized that these these frequency uh, readouts weren't weren't working at all.
I think we might be able to fix that pretty quick.
Yeah, so
That should be something on the playmaker card.
so see
Yeah.
this nothing
So
nothing there, and then
right.
this would be my cockpit.
All right. So go back into Blender.
So here, let me show you one other thing that I sort of discovered here, or I think you beat me to it. That's why I was so anxious to like show me what you did.
Yeah.
If I go into, let's see, where would that panel thing be?
Cockpit. Yeah, see that's all it needs to be.
So that's just blank. Is that really just blank?
Yes.
Oh no, wait a second. It has something on here. I thought. Did it?
But it doesn't have to have anything on it. I'd really be interested to see what the 2D panel looks like in Plane Maker on the Stager wing.
I don't know if it has one.
You would do it, I
Okay,
think, for 3D
okay.
cockpits, you would do it under the under the 3D panel, I think.
So that panel PNG is totally blank. There's nothing in
Yeah,
it.
and that's that's to be expected.
Okay, so if I run Plane Maker, then, oops,
Be interested to see what the 2D panel looks like.
if I can type, there it is. Let's find out.
Probably under 2D or 3D.
2D.
Okay, so where is that at? Here.
Standard 2D. Yeah. I have no instruments. What's the 3D panel look like?
Okay.
There it is. That's what it is.
So here, look at
That's
this.
where they mapped everything. Yep.
See
That's what they.
see this little picture down here in the corner?
Yep.
It dawned on me as I was digging into it. That's why the spinner's in there, because that gets mapped with that chunk of that.
Oh, so it can show like a fake reflection on the nose cone.
So if I do this,
The,
and if I
the
do
fake.
this,
That's an old. Yeah.
Oh, so I need to grab. I need to like.
You don't. I don't think you do. I don't think you need to do a thing. I think what you need to do is create your material. Create any new material and call it panel.
So this is all. So it has selected all of these pieces that go. Like that's all one object, right? So like these guys here, that, the spinner. There's something over here, but I don't know what that is.
There's a display over there somewhere.
Okay, so if I do that, and what is that called? That's called OBJ1. What should I call that? Panel pieces, panel parts.
Sure.
How about that? It's just for just for my well-being, right? So.
Yep. The more important thing is we got to create a new material.
Okay, so new material. It's not a manipulator.
Correct. So let's just create a animated panel material or panels.
Panel mat.
Yep, and you need to apply it to those display images.
I think I can kill this one off of here. So now this one's a manipulator, and that now has panel mat on it. Okay.
Right, as well as all of those little displays.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, good.
That's all one object. All those pieces are all just
one piece. Great. Now go down to the X-plane options and set that to part of cockpit panel. And I think that is going to do it, dude.
Now what about this cockpit region?
None. Leave it at none. There's a way, and that part I haven't learned, but everything I did tonight was all cockpit region none. So if you pull down, there should be 1 through 4 and none.
Yep.
So I guess if it doesn't work, you could take 5 more shots at it by pulling a different region. But
okay, fair enough. So now, do I need to set a texture map for that?
Nope. Negative. Nope. That can be totally blank.
So the only thing I need to do is come in here and say, it's part of the cockpit panel.
Yeah.
And
if you click, and if you check the UV maps, yes. Yep.
Because all of this is already set. I don't really need to set any of this up.
You don't. And in fact, if you took a screenshot of that, like if you grab that whole thing and then overlaid that on top of the other panel, but you have no way of knowing really how it laid out. So trying to get it to line up would be a nightmare.
Yeah, how do you know? How do you know?
I don't. After it's done, I don't know that you can.
I mean, if I look at this and I unwrap, well, if I go to edit mode here, select all.
Select all. Yep, that's where they are.
There's my mapping.
Yep. So the map, and if you go back to your panel again on Plane Maker, you can kind of see relative to where all they are. It looks like they're lined up properly. But like I said before, the panel preview thing that I was mapping to has nothing to do with what gets displayed.
Because the only thing that I would want to do is add a transponder to this because it doesn't have one. So at some point, I would probably want to come back in here and well, I guess drag a transponder stuff in here,
Yes, correct.
or at
And
least
then what you could do, yes, and then you would have to futz around and get everything to line up properly and figure out what the alignments were and adjust to that. Yes, that's what you would end up having to do.
okay. So I'm back in Blender now. If I've set this object, the only thing that I've done is assigned it a material
Mm-hmm.
and said it's part of the cockpit panel,
Yep,
and
that
that's
is
it.
all you need to do. Yep, and then and obviously the object, because you're already exporting with the manipulators, so the level itself is set as a cockpit part
Yes.
as opposed to an airplane part.
Okay, so if I export this, and then if I go back in here and reload the plane, it theoretically should work.
Should work.
I don't know if it's on.
Didn't work.
Didn't work.
So maybe we do have to play with those regions. What is the thing on the right anyway, on the passenger side?
This here?
No. The goofy one that was all the way over.
I don't know.
Somewhere down in there, wasn't it?
I have I have no idea. I mean
Well, that's disappointing. I just knew that was going to work.
Okay, so if I do this, and if I pick this and this, that's that selection, and then so this, how do I get a screenshot of this out? Do I hit this PNG?
No, that just reloads them. The only way I have seen it, like I said, well, let's do an experiment. Go back to Staggerwing and X-Plane. Let's see if it somehow magically works for you. And all you're supposed to be able to do is hold down Control, Shift, Alt, Space.
Okay.
And then that is supposed to create a file called Panel Preview in either Cockpit or Cockpit 3D under Panels. So check Panels. Holy crap, it worked. There it is.
There it is. 2048. So
That would be it.
So if I go in here then and I
You
say
should import that texture map in there.
Cockpit 3D, panels, this, open. And if I
hit your UVs,
it's nothing.
there's nothing there. That would explain that.
That explains that.
But if I look at, like, if I look at this, come on, work with me. Okay, so there's that.
So yours should be loaded up for that at least.
Everything lines up.
So something's missing.
Maybe it's the region. So you could try
Here.
like I said, yeah, might have to do one and then try that one. Out of curiosity, you know what?
Do I need to be back here?
Go to let's texture map. Let's set the texture map to that 3D panel. Or just call it the set that panel texture.
I did notice when you guys did the export of that, it showed
No,
a cockpit,
not that one.
something blend, something .obj. Does that blend matter in it?
You want the panel, not the panel preview.
So I don't have that in here just yet. So not like in the 3D, the 3D one, cockpit 3D.
Just go to panel. Yeah, just pick that one. All right.
And then do I have to? Let's see. Wasn't there? No, there's nothing
No.
down here.
Mm-mm. That's all you need to do. I found a guy that did a couple tutorials like 7 months ago. That's where I actually got the hints. And he insists that you don't need to have a texture map to it, but
Okay, so this was updated tonight at 9:19. That is right. X-plane.
we did region 1 this time.
I don't know what I did.
You just did reload with scenery.
Did I?
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah,
I did.
cockpit region 1.
Yeah, I sure did. I got scenery on the brain.
I've got a Twinkie on my brain.
But that's now that you got the panel preview magically.
Oh, reload the aircraft. Let's do that. So I don't know if does it have to be on? Is this stuff turned on? Avionics are on. Nope, nothing.
Mm.
Is your radio on?
No digits. Well, I don't have any manipulators here, but this should come on, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, it
you would
should.
think. All
Oh,
the
that's
buses
got a
are on
power
and
button
everything.
on it.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the amp gauge is flipping.
Yeah, right. Well, maybe we need a different region.
I don't know. I saw something in let's go back to none because that's where we were before. I saw something in Dan's as I was watching Dan's today at lunch. He said something about like setting one of these properties or something.
He did.
I don't know if that was it.
Because the video I just looked at, he didn't do any of that, and as it showed, it worked just fine.
So
That's part
dumb
of the issue. Is your
question. I got a dumb question. Is there any need to basically take the screen layout in the Blender file and overlay the map from that on the fuel flow digits?
Well, it should already be
it's
there.
already be mapped. Yeah, it's already mapped.
So, for instance, if like these are the fuel flow digits here, if I go to tab and I well, if I just pick these, where is it?
Where are they? And then if you overlay it. Okay, so they're basically lined up correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're lined up correctly. So I'm almost got to think it's that cockpit region, and I don't. What I haven't been able to figure out is what's important about those yet.
Okay. Well, I'll go
Track
back.
cockpit region
I
2.
think I'm really close to having something work, but from what I remember seeing on Dan's older videos, that there's something magical right in here that I think we're missing something, and I don't remember what it is. But this is definitely, I think I'm getting closer to this solving this problem
Face
with the
texture?
staggering.
Yeah.
Could it be the face textures?
Well, I mean, all of these are assigned already. Like that's already. Does this need to be the 3D panel, you think, or do you think it needs to be the one in the 2D panel?
Well, try that. But everything I've said is that hasn't the tutorial watched tonight, it
I know it's
basically
wrong.
said it
I know it's
doesn't
wrong.
need to have a texture image map at all.
Do the panel preview because the blank panel one doesn't have anything on it.
But I think that gets updated in real time because of the.
Ah.
Let me do this. So that's panels.
Mm-hmm.
Reload the aircraft, please. Nothing. Okay, well, something's still up, but I think from what you stepped through, Jeffrey, I think that matched up pretty well with what I remember. But it's just I gotta have it.
Sure did.
I think I probably should have that video open and like just step through. Did I do this? Did I do this? Did I do this?
Yeah, and then I just posted in your general text chat the link to the new tutorial.
Okay.
Um, it's a guy named Build It Better, and all these are um, much more current, like September last year current,
Okay.
and that's really what solved the solved the riddle for me for that side of it.
Gotcha. Okay. Well,
I
I'll
mean,
check it.
you were clearly close here. I think it might just be running through those 4 different regions.
Yeah, or well, you know what? Well, I mean, we could do it real quick. Except I've changed a bunch of things. I don't know. I probably should go back and watch that instead of just kind
Yeah,
of
I
guessing.
don't think I'm kind of tend to believe the guy that you don't even need to worry about setting the texture because, like I said, I know the information. The information is dynamic, so there is no way that the actual image is coming from a static image. It's just that's why it makes sense to me that that can't matter.
Right.
Um,
And that this little click here is doing something with it.
yeah, like I think if you just run through those different regions quick, I think you're gonna find it. But
Well, here's the other thing is I noticed like when I was exporting my cockpit OBJ, this guy. Oh yeah, see like this does not have any textures in it.
right, and it doesn't need to.
Except if I go back here and look at the one from Alabeo, it does.
Really.
Here's my question for you. When you exported your object, I saw it as the Alabama Stagger Wing doc the underscore cockpit dot blend dot object versus just a cockpit dot object when you export.
I
I
don't
saw that.
I don't think that matters because I think when you go in here to scene, the
Because
scene
if that's the
layout, like
case,
here,
then
I've named it this. This name will be used as a file name hint for OBJ files, and
right.
I've told it.
What if you hit the export OBJ button on the top right there above you?
I think that's the
That's what I always
same.
use.
I think that's the same as going file
Try
export.
it.
Just hit it once.
I think I just did, didn't I?
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. Now, what's that Alveo Stagger Wing cockpit object?
Well, let me get back to the one that I did. Let's see here. So 927. Yep, it just happened.
All right.
So, but see, like I don't get those. Somehow it's not catching the textures for that. So something's
I
not
think it's going to need this.
something's
But
not right yet.
but the one that worked for me does not have that.
Does it have this in it at all?
Let me see. It only says global underscore cockpit underscore lit. That's it.
Hmm. Well, then for some reason, the one from Alabeo has
Yeah, like I said, it may not be necessary. It just might be a outlier for some strange reason.
I don't know. Okay, well, we're close.
I think so.
I'll dig around on this a little bit more, and but thank you. I think I was like, I'm watching your thing, and I'm like, oh, I think we're close here. So,
Yeah.
and it worked for you. It definitely
Yep.
worked for you.
But I started from scratch too, so you gotta catch up with whatever else they did. So I would actually, if I were you, run through those other 3 regions and see if you accidentally catch it.
So, do you think that this material should be, or this texture should be the 2D panel?
I don't think the texture. I honestly don't think the texture matters. I
Okay.
don't think. I don't think like because that's what the video that I just posted. The guy was like, "There is no need to set a texture." Um, and in fact, I think the one I just created didn't have a texture set. Yeah, let me look at the. Yeah, there's no texture applied to the one that works in the triplane right now.
Okay.
So I don't think it. I don't think it matters.
All right. Well, there's nothing here. This is not working. Nothing on the radio down there yet. That is texture. That's part 1.
I don't know why I can't. Oh, there it is.
There's what I'm talking about. There's got cockpit.blend.obj is what I was seeing.
Right, like up here.
Yeah, that's what I was seeing.
Yeah,
Different.
but that name, when you hit export X-plane object, that doesn't show up. It just
Okay.
becomes this file right here.
Okay. I just didn't know that.
And scenery works the same way. Like if you build a hangar, a custom hangar or something, whatever name you give it in whatever layer you're exporting, that's the name of the OBJ file that ends up being there.
Gotcha.
Okay, so let's go here. This was number 2. If I'm all right here, I could step through these other 2 things real quick. Oh, it didn't like something on that one.
Hmm.
Oh, it's been a long road to this. Okay, I was happy with that one. Didn't complain. I still don't get it.
No, no com. Right.
Export object. Go here.
Man, it looks like it's so close.
I'll go back and watch that link that you did, and then I'll look at Dan's as well. This must be something in here that's not right.
Hmm. That is really frustrating.
Nothing.
Well, kind of typical of teach yourself
Oh yeah,
flipping X-plane development, right?
absolutely. It's weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Throwing keyboards out the window. I'm on
Yeah.
my third. I'm on my third wireless keyboard already.
All right, very good.
Although
Well,
I do have 2 10 terabyte drives that are going to be arriving in the next couple days, so I'm excited about that.
yeah, your wife is too kind.
She is.
Yes, indeed.
I'm keeping her.
I would, you know, every year another 10 terabytes, whether you need it or not, right?
I tell you something, man. I really thought one of those was going to work. I really did.
All right. Well, I'm going to go back and watch those tutorials tonight. If I find out something, I'll shoot you something on Discord, and we'll have another review party here. So.
All right, man.
Okay, guys. Thank you.
That was fun. We'll see you.
We'll see you. Bye bye.
Later.